180. And he went out onto the roof and cuffed the female defendant. I then threw my handcuffs over to him so that he could restrain Michael Hill separately. We are not allowed to handcuff a male to a female. Is that a police department regulation? Yes, it is. So there was a second officer there? Yes, there was. To your knowledge, did that second officer observe either the male defendant or the female defendant inside the opening in the roof? From his vantage point, I don't believe that he would have been able to see either one coming out of the opening. Was he below the level of the roof? He was at the same level, but he was in a different building. So there eventually came a time when both of the defendants were handcuffed. That's correct. The officer cuffed both of them. What happened after that? We had to telephone the fire department to remove the defendants from the roof of the building. Why did you have to do that? Well, we obviously couldn't allow them to go back through the opening. Did the fire department dispatch a truck? Yes, they did. What happened next? The fire department had to use an aerial ladder to lower them down safely. From the scene of the burglary, where did you take the defendants? I took them to the downtown police station. I would like to return to the items that you recovered on the building rooftop. Okay. You testified before that there were items of clothing or what appeared to be clothing in plastic cleaning bags. That's correct. Did you carry those cleaning bags back down with you? I did not do that myself, no. Another officer took them from the roof and brought them to the station. Was there anything on the clothing or on the bags that identified their origin? There were cleaning tags with the names and addresses of the owners, and they had Anderson's logo on them with the business phone and address. All right, this was a Sunday, was it not? This was a Sunday morning. Did you ascertain whether or not the cleaning store was open? It was closed. After you took the two defendants to the police station, did someone from the store eventually arrive at the station? The owner and one of his employees came to the station house. What were the names of those persons? Mr. Anderson was the owner. I don't recall the other man's name. He is employed there, but I don't remember his name. Did they identify themselves as coming from the store? Yes, they did. Did somebody at the police station show items of clothing to these two men who identified themselves as coming from the store? Yes, sir. And they did identify those items as property that belonged in their store. Please tell me exactly what things they identified. There were 20 men's suits and 35 pair of men's slacks. What else? There were several sweaters, some women's slacks, and one fur coat with a fur cap. Was the property that these individuals saw the same property that the police took from the rooftop of the Anderson store? Yes, it was. After they identified the property, what did you do with it? First, we gave it a voucher number, and then we removed it to the property clerk's warehouse. Do you have the voucher number of those stolen goods? The number is 134. Did there come a time when the police returned the clothing to the owners? After a preliminary hearing in criminal court, we returned all of the items to Mr. Anderson so that he could return them to the owners. How long ago did that hearing take place, sir? The hearing took place on January 29. Since that time, has Mr. Anderson contacted all the owners of the various pieces of clothing? To the best of my knowledge, he has called all of them. Do you have an estimate of the value of those things? State your name, please. My name is John Butler. How are you employed, Mr. Butler? I work for the Sheriff's Department. In what capacity? I am a road deputy. How long have you been so employed? Approximately 14 months. Were you on duty as a deputy sheriff on May 6th of this year? Yes, ma'am. Where were you about 9 o'clock that evening? About 9 o'clock, I was at the scene of a serious traffic accident. What was the location of that accident? About 1 mile south of the city limits. How did you happen to be there? The radio dispatcher had called me. What did you observe when you got to the scene? I saw that there had been an accident involving two cars. What kind of cars were they? There was a beige Chevrolet and a brown Toyota. What did you do when you got there, deputy? Upon arriving at the scene, I spoke to another deputy who was already there. He asked me to go to the Toyota. He said that there were 4 people in that automobile, and he believed that one of them showed no signs of life. What did you do then, deputy? I ran over to the Toyota. When I got there, I saw a woman who identified herself as a paramedic. She was rendering aid to a gentleman who was seated in the front passenger seat. Did the paramedic say anything to you? She said that she had checked the other individuals in the automobile and that at least one of them showed no signs of life. What did you do then? I ran around the vehicle to the driver's side and I saw a female who had been partially ejected from the automobile. I checked for signs of life, but there weren't any. Please continue. I also saw another female in the passenger seat directly behind the driver. I checked her, but again, I found no signs of life. What did you do after that? Well, the paramedic was receiving help from other people who were arriving at the scene. So I went back to the beige Chevrolet. What did you do when you got there? I had gotten a fire extinguisher from my vehicle. I handed it to a man and asked him to stand by. I then briefly assisted the deputy who was rendering first aid to the driver. This gentleman was bleeding from the face and he seemed to be seriously injured. Do you see that person in court today? Yes, ma'am. He is the defendant. All right. What happened next? A lot of curious people were standing around and getting in the way. So I ordered them to move back. A woman who was standing there was crying. She appeared to be extremely upset. She said that she was with him, and she pointed to the driver. I detected an odor of alcoholic beverages coming from her breath. She pointed to the defendant. Is that correct? That's correct. I then turned my flashlight on her, and I noticed that she had several lacerations on her face. Did you have a conversation with this woman? I started to, however, while we were talking, my sergeant arrived on the scene. I pointed to the brown Toyota and stated that some of the people were deceased. He then informed me that there had been a minor accident about 10 miles away, and he ordered me to go there immediately and make out a report. Did you do that? Yes, ma'am. After you made out a report of that minor accident, did you return to the scene of the accident to assist in the investigation? Yes, I did. I returned a short time later. By that time, the ambulance had removed the survivors. I went to the Toyota, which still contained the deceased females, and at that time, the sergeant told me to take some photographs. What did you do after you took the photographs? My sergeant told me to proceed to the hospital and issue a citation to the driver for operating a vehicle while he was under the influence of an intoxicant. Did you go to the hospital at that time? Yes, I did. When I got there, they were taking x-rays, so I spoke to the doctor and made arrangements to see the driver. Did you have to wait very long? No, I didn't. A short time later, I entered the room where they were treating him for his injuries, and I then issued a citation for him for operating a motor vehicle while he was under the influence. At that time, I gave him a form which contained his constitutional rights. Did you, in fact, physically issue a citation to the defendant? I put it on his chest. Was he in any mental condition to discuss this matter with you? Not at that time. Was he conscious? He was awake, yes. You say you handed him a form containing his constitutional rights. Did you read those rights to him? Yes, ma'am. I read them to him aloud. I'm showing you what the clerk has marked states Exhibit 1. Can you identify that? It's a photocopy of the printed form that I handed to him. It recites his constitutional warnings. Did you hand it to him? I placed it on his chest together with the citation.